On December 7th, 1941, at 7:48 a.m. Hawaii time, Japanese fighter planes bombed Pearl Harbor, which is the American naval base just outside of Honolulu, Hawaii. Nearly 20 naval vessels were destroyed by the Japanese. Some of those vessels included 8 battleships and over 300 planes. Over 3,000 American soldiers and sailors were killed or wounded by this attack. The attack came in 2 waves. The first wave consisted of 3 groups. The first group had 49 Nakajima B-5N Kate bombers armed with 1,760 pounds of bombs and 40 B-5N bombers armed with Type 91 torpedoes. The second group had 51 HE D-3A Val dive bombers armed with 550 pounds of general-purpose bombs. In the third group, 43 Mitsubishi A-6M Zero fighters targeted air traffic control and strafing. The second wave also came in 3 groups. In the first group, 54 B-5Ns armed with 682 pounds of general-purpose bombs. The second group had 78 D-3As armed with 550 pounds of general-purpose bombs came in 4 sections. The last group, 35 A-6Ms, targeted defense and strafing. The next day, President Roosevelt asked Congress to declare war on Japan. With only 1 dissenting vote, Congress approved FDR's declaration. After 3 days, Germany and Italy declared war on the United States, and Congress reciprocated. More than 2 years into the conflict, the United States finally joined World War II. June 6, 1944. Allied forces begin their offensive against the German regime in Normandy, France. Originally planned for June 5th, the American forces were delayed by inclement weather, causing the generals to hold off just 1 day in the global mission to liberate Europe. Japan forced the hand of the United States at the bombing of Pearl Harbor, and although their participation in World War II began shortly after the bombing, this was the first true offensive for the U.S. and the Allied forces into France. The invasion of France was broken into 5 sectors: Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juneau, and Sword beaches. However, the United States only took place in Omaha and Utah beaches. A famous quote from General Eisenhower to get his troops ready for battle was, "You are about to embark on the great crusade, toward which we have striven these many months. The eyes of the world are upon you." This helped ease many of the troops' sense of fear, but these were still 18, 19-year-old kids who were heavily undertrained. You can't help but wonder if many of them knew what was coming, if many of them knew they would never see their parents, wives, and children again. The air invasion began that morning, allowing paratroopers to build a line behind the German forces, cutting off any escape routes. The amphibious invasion began shortly after on Utah and Omaha beaches for the United States forces. The plan was for both naval and air raids to hit the German forces quickly, allowing the ground forces to make a fast approach, with minimal casualties. Several tanks were also acquisitioned to give the infantry more cover. Utah Beach was all but an ocean vacation for the United States Army. Everything went exactly to plan for Utah Beach. The light opposition was met with thousands of ground troops, leading to a swift taking of the beach. However, Omaha Beach, the one that you often hear about, was the invasion of Normandy. Tens of thousands of U.S. troops were killed within minutes of landing. German troops had bunkers set up with heavy artillery and machine guns set up, not allowing the U.S. forces to gain a foothold on the beach. The 29th Infantry Division, which was a set of rookie soldiers in the first wave of the invasion led the way along with 9 Ranger companies on the western end of the beach, while the 1st Infantry Division, who were made up of many war veterans, led the way on the eastern end of the beach. The landing craft, along with a few tanks, punched through the middle of the beach. However, this was the group that ended up with the most casualties. Even though everything went to plan at Utah Beach, absolutely nothing went to plan at Omaha. Navigation was more difficult than many of the soldiers expected, and in addition, the heavy German fortifications led to the United States forces being scrambled upon arrival. Many of the on-site squad captains began to change their immediate plan, allowing for some survivors to make their way up the mountain and begin taking out the German gunners, which would save thousands of lives in the subsequent waves. Many of the casualties at Omaha Beach were blamed on misintelligence. Scouts and intelligence from behind the lines reported low fortification on each area of the invasion, which is why the generals of the Allied forces chose the area in particular. But as stated before, the intelligence and analysts were only right about 4 out of 5 of the beaches, leaving those at Omaha Beach to stare death right in the face. It would take over 5 days to fully secure all 5 sectors, but overall, D-Day led to what eventually would become Hitler's downfall. Even though they faced extreme casualties, the United States and the rest of the Allied forces pushed on past Normandy after several weeks of fighting and would eventually make their way and take Berlin, ending the Second World War.